Now, for more on World Tourism Day and the state of the industry amid a pandemic, I'm joined by Mark Ellwood. He's a travel writer and co-host of Bloomberg's Travel Genius podcast. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Rachelle. How are you?
Good, thank you. So first, it might seem strange. I mean, why celebrate World Tourism Day at all this year, given all the travel restrictions, the layoffs, the losses, and ongoing concerns about the coronavirus?
But I think you've answered your own question in the introduction to this segment, where you said, remember, tourism, which feels like a fun thing to us, because the whole point is when we're on vacation, we forget everyone is working. Tourism is more than 10% of the world's GDP. And the challenge from the pandemic is both medical and economic. And one of the ways we will need to rebound is reclaiming and rebooting tourism. So talking about it isn't somehow unseemly. It is 1 in 10 jobs worldwide. And that's why we need to talk about it right now. And we need to talk about it all the time.
And we certainly see that this year's UN theme is tourism and rural development, something people might not usually put together. So what are some specific examples of how tourism contributes to the development of rural communities around the world?
So that's a great question. One of my favorite examples is something called the albergo diffuso, or dispersed hotel, which is an idea that obviously started in Italy, because we call it, use the Italian term. And essentially what it is it's a cross between an Airbnb and a hotel. It started in a little town in Abruzzo in Italy, where an entrepreneur took some abandoned buildings in a gorgeous but very economically depressed area, very rural area, and said, I can turn these into lovely places to stay and operate them a bit like a hotel, but without building a new building. His concept has spread. He's got a new project coming up in Rwanda. There are projects like that in Kyoto, in the Dominican Republic. Wherever you can find a few buildings, you can create a dispersed hotel. So you're not imposing new structures on the landscape. You're actually using what's there and hopefully using local people to staff the hotels.
So then how can rural people themselves really make themselves a little bit stronger, more resilient to this, so in case they haven't diversified and have become so reliant on some of this foreign travel coming in?
No, and I think that's interesting. There's a wonderful project called Saira Hospitality, which is run by a woman called Harsha Lakra. I take my hat off to her, one of the smartest people in travel. She has become a grassroots advocate, and she works to train local people to work in hospitality, because one of the big challenges was always, we don't have a gorgeous hotel in a pioneering area, but often the staff would be brought in and it wouldn't have as much of an economic uplift to the surrounding area as it should have done. Now people like Harsha are making sure that everyone benefits. The tourists get a great new experience in a pioneering area, but in rural areas, those people feel the economic benefit. And that, to me, is incredibly exciting.
Now, I want to look at this recent McKinsey report that says tourism spending isn't likely to return to pre-crisis levels until 2024. That's putting 120 million jobs at risk. What's at stake here if these predictions are accurate in terms of the broader economy?
Well, again, I would just go back. I want to fight tourism's corner here because I think it's often forgotten as a cornerstone of the economy. I'm very glad McKinsey has pointed out that we need to find a solution for the tourism industry, both during and after COVID-19. I would encourage people to think of this in a two-phase rebound. I suspect that really enthusiastic travelers like me, like the people who are desperate to be on a plane, the minute there is some sense of treatment or vaccine, there will be a movement for them to travel in larger numbers again. But then there'll be a second phase, and we have to bridge to that second phase. Staycations are going to be the bread and butter of the industry, I think, for the foreseeable future.
And we've seen some interesting concepts, for example, the flights to nowhere phenomenon. Talk about some of the examples that some of these travel companies and other hospitality industries are using to really adapt under these circumstances.
I mean, I love flying, but I don't know about you. Would you really get on a plane that didn't take you anywhere? I don't know if I love flying that much, which are these ideas. Some of the airlines, like Singapore Airlines, which don't have a huge domestic business, they're really driven by long haul, are doing flights to nowhere. Some of them are selling their airline meals, almost like those meal kits we get, but in this case, the meal would be the food you would eat on a plane. Even as an avid traveler, I wouldn't sign up for that. But I do think there is something lovely about how much it shows we love flying, even with a little wing. You know, I could be maybe persuaded to take one of those flights.
Well, we'll see. Perhaps I could be too. Thank you so much. Mark Ellwood there, travel writer and co-host of the Travel Genius podcast.